Hey everybody, it's Rob. So Portland and Seattle are currently trending on Twitter, and if you thought that maybe it had to do with craft beer or local music or art or culture or rain would probably be an appropriate topic about Portland and Seattle, you'd be sorely mistaken. What it is a bunch of right-wing chuds, most of whom live far away from Seattle and Portland, many of whom have never even fucking been there, are getting themselves all worked up again over the idea that Antifa is totally burning down these cities and destroying, everything that is good and holy in the awful communist cities of Portland and Seattle. And the truth is that this is just a bunch of bullshit that is being cooked up by right-wing media outlets to keep these dumb chuds in line with the idea that they need to devote their lives to opposing the impending communist takeover of the United States, that Antifa is just around the corner from showing up in Bumblefuck and turning your humble little village into a communist death camp. It's ridiculous. It's completely absurd. It's off the wall. If any of these people would go to Portland and Seattle, they'd probably still be frightened. They wouldn't like it because they'd see things like beautiful street art, and they wouldn't know how to handle the fact that there are beautiful murals and things like that, along with some graffiti that just says things like "fuck the cops," whatever. Anyone who lives in a city understands that this is just how cities are. There's a ton of fucking people. Some of those people are going to have extreme views. There's going to be demonstrations and protests, and every now and then they're going to get out of hand a little bit. Rarely do they ever even escalate to the point where a building is going to be partially set on fire. It's rare that it's even going to get to the point where you could really, in a legitimate sense, call it a riot. Generally, it's just a bunch of people with signs chanting things, maybe a guy or two on a bullhorn. And then the cops show up in riot gear, and it makes a scene, and it probably looks really scary and frightening on Newsmax's YouTube channel. But the truth is that Portland and Seattle are still wonderful places to live. People are moving there in droves because there's things to do. Right now with COVID, there's a little bit less to do, but there's still a lot going on. If you want to immerse yourself in art or culture, get a lot of good beer, go see sports, go see live music. These cities are just great places. They're not falling to China or Antifa or George Soros or the NWO or whatever you motherfuckers think. You're just scaring yourselves. You're frightening yourselves, chuds. And the truth is, Antifa isn't showing up to Bumblefuck, Indiana to, kill your mayor and install their communist regime. That's never going to happen. They don't give a fuck. They just don't like the fact that white supremacists are trying to, increase their power over society, and they're demonstrating against that. It's just how cities are and always have been. If you could somehow take a time machine back to some city in like ancient Rome or something, you're probably going to occasionally run into people demonstrating, and every now and then it's going to get out of hand a little bit. That's just something that happens in human societies. And of course, it happens in places where there are high concentrations of people. Nobody is going to, Bumblefuck, Ohio, population, 3,000, to do a big demonstration about some political issue. It's just not happening. And feel free to just cower in your little homes and be convinced by right-wing media outlets that Antifa is scary and terrible and coming to destroy you, but you're just fucking up your own minds. You're just scaring yourselves. You're just causing yourselves anxiety over something that everyone else knows is just ridiculously untrue. You're just fucking up yourselves. It's absurd. So again, Portland, Seattle, both great cities. They remain great cities. I personally wouldn't want to live in either of them because they're cloudy all the time. There's a lot of rain. Just really not my scene. I like Colorado because we get a fuck ton of sun. And I need the sun for whatever reason psychologically. I love the sun. So I don't know if I do too well in Portland and Seattle for those reasons, but you'd have to get to like reason number like 783 that, you know, maybe protests that involve BLM and Antifa are like a problem in those cities. Once in a while, of course, demonstrations happen and it causes congestion of traffic, or you know, businesses are vandalized or whatever. But to convince yourself that, you know, there's a impending doom and disaster that's being cooked up in these cities is just a bullshit fabrication of right-wing media. And when you allow yourselves to be kind of roped in by this nonsense, you're just doing damage to your own psychological well-being. And you look like a fucking fool.